I'm Pam Cooper, co-founder of Boosterville, and I'm here to tell you that school fundraising stinks. 60 years ago, my grandma was a teacher whose students sold magazine subscriptions to buy library books. 30 years ago, my mom's marching band kids were pushing cheese and sausage to raise money to appear in the Rose Bowl parade. 10 years ago, it was me, with wrapping paper and cookie dough for classroom supplies. I know school fundraising. It's a broken industry, but Boosterville fixes it. Your school gets the money you need, but so do the local businesses within your community. Boost your school while you boost your local businesses. Buy local, boost local. Choose Boosterville.
And now if I could have President Otha Thornton, President-elect Laura Bay, and your Secretary-Treasurer, Tina Zubek. I am so very proud to be here to share in this ceremony and this very special moment in PTA history. PTA has always been a diverse membership, but today, after 117 years, we add another great milestone. We have our first African-American male PTA president. Otha Thornton, you have been called to serve the National PTA, as have you, President-elect Laura Bay, and Secretary-Treasurer Tina Zubek. Each of you have been chosen to serve the National PTA in your respective positions to lead us into the future. But of course, this also comes as a tremendous honor. As leaders, the following quote reminds us about our abilities to lead. We must be silent before we listen. We must listen before we learn. We must learn before we prepare. And we must prepare before we can serve. And we must serve before we can lead. And lead you will for the next 2 years as a critical, important, and strong advocacy organization. We need great leaders to continue our mission in this ever-changing and challenging world. So as you lead, you will need your unfailing PTA spirit that has stood the test of time. So forward we will march for the mission of PTA. We will march to our schools. We will march to Congress. We will march to the White House. President and Lieutenant Colonel Otha Thornton, we are ready to march for all of the nation's children. So forward march. The troops are ready, willing, and able to take the next step for our children. Ladies and gentlemen, I duly install and present to you your national officers for 2013 to 2015. Congratulations.
Thank you, Joe. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and my privilege to introduce to you your new National President, Otha Thornton.
Good afternoon. All honor to God for this wonderful opportunity and responsibility to lead the nation's oldest child advocacy organization. I'm extremely excited to begin our journey today as your 53rd National PTA President. As an association, our members deliver volunteer service each year, which if we attached a monetary value to it, would be worth about $2 billion. For your personal time, financial contributions, and sacrifices for our children, I personally thank you. And to our 22,000 plus PTA units at all levels and millions of members around the country and at military schools around the globe, you deserve a round of applause. Thank you to our distinguished guests, our President-elect Laura Bay, our Secretary-Treasurer Tina Zubek, our newly elected board, and our distinguished group of past national presidents, and our PTA family. First and foremost, I would like to thank my family, and I would like to recognize them at this time. My immediate family, Karen Thornton, my wife, please stand. We've been married for 24 years. She is a teacher and educator. My daughter, Candace. Candace is a returning art history senior at Spelman College. My son, Trey Thornton, a senior at Morehouse College. I would like for my mother, Estelle, to please stand. And I had three brothers that joined me here today. Charles Thornton, 8th grade science teacher, please stand. Eric Thornton and his wife, please stand. And my niece, Jay, where you at, Jay? Stand up. And I also have a special group of friends, the Smith family, Wright family, and Dr. Watts, please stand. To my mother, Estelle, who told my brothers and sisters and me that we could be anything that we wanted to in life if, number one, we kept God first, number two, educated our minds, and number three, treated people with respect. Mom, I thank you and love you for that. I would also like to thank President Landers for her service to our association and to her family for the support and sacrifices during her presidency. Let's please give Bessie a round of applause. From my cultural background, it is also necessary for me to thank my ancestors who came before me and made this tremendous sacrifices so that we could be at this position today. In particular, I'd like to recognize two giants whose legacies have impacted this nation's education system and have influenced my own views on the important role of education in our lives. First, Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays from 96, South Carolina, who was a mentor to Dr. Martin Luther King and countless other Morehouse men, as well as an advisor to President Lyndon Baines Johnson. Dr. Mays once said, "The purpose of an education is first to build character, second to serve humanity, and lastly to earn a living. And then there's Selena Sloan Butler from Thomasonville, Georgia, Spelman College class of 1888, and one of the legends and founders of National PTA. Ms. Butler co-founded the National Congress of Colored Parents and Teachers in 1911, and as any student of PTA history knows, merged with the National PTA for the well-being of children, not only in the United States, but all over the world. Ms. Butler was a Renaissance woman before the world knew what it meant to be a Renaissance woman. As I stand here today, I feel the spirit of our other two National PTA founders, Alice Burney and Phoebe Hurst, along with my first National PTA mentor, Jan Domenic. They are smiling down upon us right now, pleased with the progress that we have made in our 117-year-old association. Let me stress that the significance of this day is not lost on me and should not be lost on you. Let me say that again. The significance of this day is not lost on me and should not be lost on you. I have no doubt that Ms. Sloan and Dr. Mays are looking down on Cincinnati with this convention with great pride. And I have no doubt that future generations will look back at this day and will be filled with inspiration. Because on this day, National PTA was not afraid to continue the legacy of breaking down barriers. On this day, National PTA was not afraid to continue its legacy of embracing change. On this day, National PTA rewarded dedication and recognized that we are at our very best when we all work together with one common purpose and a shared goal. Give yourselves a round of applause for being steadfast. You did not listen to naysayers. You did not listen to those who perpetuated stereotypes. You listened to your heart. And for that, I will always be grateful. I am most grateful to the team of past national presidents, PTA leaders, and all of my supporters, too many to name, who have walked this journey with me for the last 2 years. Today, we will continue this great challenge and journey. As a working father and an engaged parent, I would also like to give my employer, General Dynamics, a special thanks for affording me the opportunity to continue to work at a great company, to serve my country, and most importantly, for the betterment of our nation's most precious resource, our children. You know, our founders were courageous women, but in the 19th century, they did not have a true voice or vote in our evolving democracy. However, their strength and conviction forged a loud and clear voice for the well-being of all children and families. Today, I'm asking you to hear my voice and share my vision for this great association that has devoted itself so passionately to children for 117 years. We will come back to the vote later on. As you know, I'm very proud to say that I served my country in peace and war for over 21 years, retiring as a lieutenant colonel from the United States Army. Yes, I know some of you may think that with the military background, I may be a little bit rigid. But our leaders in the armed forces today work in environments around the nation and the world that teaches and reinforces in us flexibility, innovation, critical thinking, and how to make the most out of limited resources. Along with my local and state PTA background, I bring these skills to the National PTA team as your president. During the next 2 years, I want to focus our association's efforts on number 1, leadership, 2, 21st century advocacy, and number 3, to being more inclusive and a power-sharing organization at all levels, from local units all the way to national headquarters. Leadership is the most critical factor in any organization. Servant leadership is the model that I will live by, so that every leader can witness what true leadership in action is about. Ken Blanchard, the management expert and the author of A 1-Minute Manager, writes in his book that servant leadership is about making the goals clear and then rolling up your sleeves and doing whatever it takes to help people win. In that situation, they don't work for you, you work for them. For all PTA leaders, whether elected, appointed, self-appointed, informal, it is critical that we keep first and foremost in our mind that we are here to serve our nation's children. We work for them. Let me say that again. We work for them, our children. And we do that by creating a voice and an inclusive and welcoming environment for all parents and their children. During my tour in Iraq a few years ago, I heard this Arabic quote, and it stated, "It is better for an army of sheep to be led by a lion than an army of lions to be led by a sheep." As a leader in your PTA units, the climate, the tone, and the environment that you set will shape the character and soul of your PTA unit. Whether a 40-member local unit, a 400-member PTA council, a 40,000-member state, or a 4+ million association at national level. Our leaders must be in tune with their character and the group that they lead. Our members will not only imitate your words, but more importantly, your actions. One of my favorite generals, a fellow named Lieutenant General Russell Honoré, who took charge of disaster relief operations during Hurricane Katrina. We also called him the Raging Cajun. But he once said, as leaders, we want to make sure that our audio matches our video. As your president, we will do what we say from national level down to the local units. We must strive to live by our association's values by being committed, collaborative, inclusive, respectful, and exercising accountability and integrity. If we do it as leaders, the great people that we lead at all levels will strive to follow the model. I will do my absolute best to serve and emulate as a servant leader to you all. Let's start with the first value of commitment. I really value commitment. The challenges facing our nation's education system and country's academic standing in the world are greater than at any other point in our history. In speaking up for the Common Core state initiative, the Interstate Compact Act, and other educational initiatives and legislation, we cannot take a convenient approach. A convenient approach will leave our children with a conveniently bad education. Everything that we do has to be with an unwavering commitment to our children and their well-being foremost in our minds. We have other active and engaged forces that are not committed to the best interests of our 74 million children. So we must remain committed and engaged. As parents, grandparents, guardians, caregivers, and foster parents, we know that a school only becomes an excellent school with a committed team of parents. Last year I was on a radio show in Chicago, and a caller called into the show and said, "Mr. Thornton, we need to boycott the schools to get our children what they need." And I told the gentleman, I said, as parents, we don't need to boycott the schools, we need to occupy them. Not in the literal sense of living inside the schools and handcuffing yourself to the flagpole, but we need to work for change inside our schools. We need to volunteer more, listen to our teachers more, listen to our children more, and then go volunteer. That's the biggest thing we can do for our school systems as parents. We need to make our schools our second home, a place where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad to see you come. Now that's how you occupy a school. That's going to give you better results than 100 boycotts. PTAs know this, and let's work to spread the message to other parents. Let me stress that I empathize with the parents that do not have the means or cannot contribute as much as they would like to due to life constraints. But in the battle for a great education, we need more ground game and less blame game. We need chess parents in our schools, not checker parents. Chess parents are the parents that show up to ensure that the needs of their children are met. And checker parents show up when there is trouble, but not consistently to address their children's educational matters. We need consistent, committed advocates and parents to support our schools, their support staffs, our teachers and principals to create and maintain model schools. We look forward to the PTA units across the nation and world committing to the excellence and competing for our Schools of Excellence program this school year. I will continue to lead by example and be a totally committed PTA leader, not a convenient leader. Now let's look at collaboration. I value collaboration. During the last 2 years, I have met with leaders at all levels of our association, as well as our membership. I listened, I took notes, I welcome advice on moving our association forward. Make no mistake, I'm listening and will continue to listen and collaborate. I don't have all the answers. I don't even have most of the answers, but I do know how to collaborate and come up with the best answer for a situation. The best collaboration comes when you value diversity and inclusion. I will strive to include all volunteers and to honor the spirit and the letter of diversity and inclusion policies and practices that we have. I want to ensure that not only our members have a seat at the table, but a voice and a vote at the table. Now let's look at respect. I will show and exercise respect to everyone who I have the privilege to lead and serve. And I want all of our leaders and members to render the due respect to every person that we encounter. Living in one of the most impoverished areas of the country, the rural Appalachian zone, and figuring out how to participate in extracurricular activities was really a very tough thing. And this is one part where I would like to just recognize my mom that made a powerful difference in our lives as my family lived. In 1983, I can remember, and we talk about parent accountability to our kids. My mother, in 1983, my father left a few years earlier, and my mom kept us together as a family. And I can remember my mom, I would go to school in the morning, 7:30, get out of school, and I would go to work full time. And I would get home every night between 7 and 10, depending upon the hours. And one of the most powerful things that my mom would do, we didn't have vehicles, we didn't have transportation, didn't have public transportation. And she said, "How was school today?" That's accountability. That really made a difference. And as parents, we have to have accountability for our children. Accountability for education begins at home. But unfortunately, not all children have an advocate in their home. So for them, PTA is their advocate. Let me start now with advocacy, the next area. It is why we do what we do. Through my travels around the country and the world over the last several years as a national PTA board member and officer, I would often say to our members, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. If you're not at that table speaking up for your child or your children's need, other people will make those choices for you. With PTA, we want you at the table to collaborate and help us make the best decision for all children. If I can paraphrase something I heard so eloquently from elected officials earlier this month in the education field, he said we can be the decision makers for our children's future or a decision made. Let's be the decision makers and the influencers. We want to speak up for all our children to ensure that as a nation we are providing the best opportunities for their well-being and make sure that when they graduate from high school they are college or career ready. We want them to have options and choices for their dreams that they may offer to the world. This fall, I want our local units to start at home and invite members to your decision-making table. Invite them to your schools and show them what you're doing in your schools and show them your needs. It's very important. Make sure that you have a voice in that democratic process. Today's PTA parents are some of the smartest parents that we have, and we need to make sure that we're including everyone at that table. Let's focus on true transparency and make sure that people have a true choice, a true voice, and a true vote. If as an association, if we cannot hear a parent's voice, we definitely can't hear the children's voice. So we're going to stick with our motto, every child, one voice. And hearing every member's voice, we need every member to activate their membership cards this year and beyond to ensure that we're getting proper feedback from the field and integrating those particular areas. This fall, I have a challenge for the 22,000 units, a call to action. Again, that you coordinate with your states to get what your legislative priorities are so that you can know and be focused on what we need to do to support our kids. And this call to action, today's PTA transformation and movement to get out our message and priorities to our members and supporters will not only be televised, it will be Facebook, it will be email, tweeted, Skype, and any other forms of communications we can to get our message out. I have asked the state presidents to tool and retool communication platforms and social media networks so we can make sure that the voices are heard in state assemblies around the country, the U.S. Congress, and the White House this year in 2014, which is a very important year for our elected officials. We want to work and advise state PTAs in having an exceptional legislative teams. There are legislative battles going on around the country right now as we speak to shape education policy. We will continue to speak up for those initiatives that are going on right now, the Common Core State Initiative and Safe Schools Free from Violence and Bullying. We will continue to emphasize to states that although we educate our children locally, our children compete globally. We are at a very critical time in history, and we need to ensure that we equip our children to compete in the 21st century global and knowledge-based economy. Before we talk about our membership, the voice of PTA, let's talk about the vote of PTA. Do you want to get your elected and appointed officials' attention? Well, as we go back to school this fall, run membership drives and voter registration drives together and watch the reaction and newfound friends and allies you will gain. We will continue to conduct and increase candidate forums to ensure that politicians hear our voices. We will leverage our social media and continue to build a communication structure that will be the envy of the advocacy world. Today's PTA hard currencies are our voices and our votes. Let's leverage these currencies. Please keep in mind that we are a 501(c) association, which means that we are nonpartisan, and we do not endorse parties, but we do educate and inform our members on education issues that face our children. When our members go out and make the best decision for all children, that is advocacy. And that's what we need to look out for the interests of all our children. So to the competing voices who say that PTA is becoming too political, I say to them that letting our elected officials know that our millions of members are informed and prepared to vote in the primaries and the 2014 elections is more than political. I say to them that fighting to make sure that our voice is heard and our voices felt is more than political. The PTA didn't become the oldest and largest child advocacy organization in the United States by sitting on the sidelines. We did it by getting in the game. We did it by putting ourselves in a position to be heard. We're not 117 years old. We're 117 years young. We're energized, we're passionate, and we're more ready than ever to fight for our children. Call it what you want, but if I were you, I wouldn't sit on the sidelines and complain. I would join our fight and join our cause, join our mission, join today's PTA. In the book, Good to Great, while some companies make the leap and others don't, author Jim Collins states that to go from good to great, we have to begin the process by confronting brutal facts of our current reality. Leadership not only takes vision, but it also takes enough confidence in that vision to confront brutal facts that may be hindering to the vision from fully taking shape. When it comes to PTA membership is a brutal fact that we must confront. To bolster membership and stem the tide of defections, we have to respect and embrace the differences of opinions within our association. We need to make sure that we do not fall into the groupthink traps and instead encourage the many bright-minded people who offer solutions to challenges that we face to continue to offer solutions. One of my favorite quotes is, "There's nothing more unequal than the equal treatment of unequals." What do you mean? Let me say that again. There is nothing more unequal than the equal treatment of unequals. Well, in today's PTA, we have different definitions of families, blended families, foster families, and we have to meet people where they are. Everything is not on a model, so that is very important. I've had some wonderful experiences traveling around the association over the last couple of years, attending PTA events around the nation with the opportunity to quietly observe our members work. I have felt the great and welcoming warmth of PTAs that I have visited. Dedication, passion, and devotion to children is what we share. It is the heart of PTA. But in other places, our values of diversity and respect did not resonate. Some PTAs are territorial. Some PTAs are too cliquish. Some PTAs are too set in their ways. We have to be more flexible. We have to be more open-minded. We have to be 117 years young, not 117 years old. And everything that we do, we have to strive to have consistent PTA values across all our units. We have to reach out to today's PTA in the 21st century. We have access to iPhones, Kindles, Rosetta Stone, and can identify with life experiences of people that may be different from us. We must consciously take on the challenges of language and cultural barriers head on. When we do that, the growth potential is tremendous. On the Great Seal of our nation, the inscription reads, "E pluribus unum," out of many, one. In today's PTA, we are many, but we have one voice. In today's PTA, we have to be willing and prepared to extend ourselves to reach out into the cities, hamlets, barrios, and communities around the country. We're not only just a suburban association, we're not just an urban association. We are a very diverse association that will go into every community around our great nation and world and meet people from other cultures, speak their language, and welcome them into the PTA family. Wherever we go across our nation and our global village, we want to embrace the diverse cultures while maintaining our association's values. Keep in mind, as we reach across America into uncharted PTA communities, we have to meet people where they are. I'm a hopeless optimist, and exercising our PTA value of respect and just simply accepting and loving fellow human beings with the intentions of serving. This will do wonders with our recruiting and retention of our members. This past December, at national level, we conducted a survey with all our state PTAs. And despite our technological advantages and capabilities that allow us to communicate with all the people, one of the brutal facts that we are not doing a good job in is diversity at the higher levels. The facts and the math across our association are, we have 1,087 leaders in state board positions around the United States. Out of that, we have 49 Hispanics. Of 1,087 board members in the Congresses, we have 17 Asian Americans. Out of 1,087 state board members, we have 172 African Americans. Out of 1,087 board members in the United States, on state boards, we have 7 Native Americans. I want every delegate within the sound of my voice today to go back to your states and let your leaders and members know that we can do better and we will do better. From the top to the bottom, we want our audio to match our video. We should strive to provide every member with a voice and a vote in the conduct of our association's business at every level. I had a great meeting and training session this past week with all our state presidents, and we talked about some new ways to address this challenge to ensure that we're doing the right thing by our children and our members. In today's PTA, we want our leaders and members who actively and consciously embody the values of commitment, collaboration, inclusivity, respect, and integrity. With these values, we can ensure that we do not disenfranchise, discourage, dismiss, or defame fellow members and groups who do not share our individuals' or groups' opinions or ways. Instead, we want to empower, encourage, embrace every member and their families at every level in PTA. Our permanent interest is our children. With solid leadership, 21st century advocacy and inclusivity, I see great things forward as we move forward with National PTA. I look forward to taking this journey with you, and I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Otha.
No more handouts for schools. Instead, waves of new customers seeking out your business, intentionally making new purchases locally, knowing a portion benefits their school. That's Boosterville. Sell local, buy local, boost local. Boosterville.